What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. I was actually going to go with this last week, the day Goldberg actually returned, but I went with the Royal Rumble 2001. But yeah, this video is on the first feud. The second will be coming later this week, hopefully. I wanted to do them separately because they're two totally different eras, and I feel if I did combine them, I wouldn't work as hard on both sides of the feud. So yeah. Okay, this thing initially was a farce. Both guys had no interest in giving it their all for WrestleMania. At the time, it was seen as a dream match. You know, the ultimate powerhouse is going at it for the first time, and it's sad to think that the match took 13 more years to deliver. On paper, legendary stuff. Worlds colliding. You know, SmackDown, Brock Lesnar, Raw, Bill Goldberg, they're gonna go and clash. It's gonna be explosive. It's gonna be wild. And it wasn't until 2017 that that potential was realized. Like, when you think of the names Bill Goldberg and Brock Lesnar, it's supposed to be mayhem. What we got at WrestleMania 20 was so damn forgettable. Anyways, enough talk, let's get into it. So at this point in time, Brock Lesnar and Goldberg were world champions of their respective brands. Their first interaction together was at the 2003 Survivor Series, where Goldberg just interrupted his promo, Brock's promo, and introduced himself. That's all. He walked away like a tough guy, and that's it. It was a little teaser for their future bout. Now, I did some digging, as I always do, and these are rumors, take it as you will. The rumor going around was that Goldberg and Lesnar were going to face off in a champion versus champion match. Was it going to be for the titles? I doubt it, who knows? But it makes sense to me because of the Survivor Series teaser. Also, I've heard a couple of times that they wanted to have the two world champions clash. You know, the Brock Lesnar and RVD match from WrestleMania 19, but neither one of those happened. A wrench was thrown into the plans about a month later because Goldberg lost the world title. At this point, things were really bad between the company and Bill. They felt he wasn't worth the money that they spent on him, and Bill himself didn't like their new offer. Also, rumor has it, a certain somebody was politicking himself into winning the world title. So there's that. It wasn't working between both sides. He was receiving heat, I believe, from guys in the back. You know, he was just a loner. On the other side, Brock Lesnar had already signed a 7-year contract with the company, and he was the WWE champion. Fast forward to January 25th, 2004, the night of the Royal Rumble. Brock Lesnar's wanting some interview time, and he's trying to take it away from Goldberg, of all people. Wasn't really all that happy about it. Brock told him the last time they met, he was champion. Like, you had the title, where's it now? But Goldberg assured him that he's gonna regain his title, and this is the best part.
Ain't that right, hardcore?
He's almost pissing himself, despite making him look like a jobber literally 10 minutes earlier. He indicated Brock's a coward before leaving. So yeah, this is the beginning. About an hour later, Goldberg enters the match at number 30, smashes everyone in sight, eliminates everyone that he can eliminate, and then the paranoid champion runs in there and F5s him. Goldberg had the death stare, and he told Brock, "You SOB, you're next." But then Angle ends up eliminating him only 5 seconds later. Had this match happened today, I think Goldberg would have won the entire thing. We all knew who did, but yes, the feud between Brock and Goldberg was off to a rocky start. The next night on Raw, Goldberg sent the coach's ribs right back to 2003 and once again told Brock Lesnar that he's next. Meanwhile, on SmackDown, Brock Lesnar was without a single worry in the world. He said that if he was such a Goldberg wannabe, then why is he the youngest world champion in history? As a matter of fact, Goldberg never main evented WrestleMania. Slow down there, buddy, please. Don't jinx it. And he made it seem like Goldberg was the Brock Lesnar wannabe. He wanted to prove that he isn't afraid of Goldberg, and so he's going to make an open challenge. The fans loudly chanted, "Goldberg, Goldberg," and he lost his cool. So the challenger ended up being Orlando Jordan, and yes, he obviously took the L. So basically, Lesnar was claiming he wasn't afraid. With that said, on Raw that week, Stone Cold handed Goldberg a ticket to No Way Out. He's busy with his job and whatnot, and warned Bill not to do anything he wouldn't do. Keyword, he wouldn't do. Ha! Since Goldberg was essentially confirmed to be in attendance for No Way Out, Mr. McMahon made an abrupt appearance on the February 9, 2004 episode of Raw. Also, it's a weird visual to see Vince and Goldberg in the ring. Never happened before, never happened since, right? He was here to inform Bill that is canceling his match, and Stone Cold interrupted and drove the damn ATV out there. And Austin came out because he had no idea why Vince was even out here. Now, the reason why the CEO was here was because of last week. How Austin conveniently had a buddy that conveniently gave him a ticket that he conveniently handed to Bill Goldberg. He knew that there wasn't anything Austin wouldn't do and tried to get them to listen to the voice of reason, that being Paul Heyman. It was a random appearance that wasn't welcome. JR felt dirty at the sight of just looking at Paul Heyman. The fans were booing the SmackDown general manager. He called out Austin and how he used a legal loophole to bring Benoit to Raw. And as for Goldberg, he was well aware of the front row ticket and warned him not to do anything. Then, he threatened him, telling him that he's a big fish in a small pond on Raw, whereas Brock Lesnar's a shark that will eat him alive. So even if he tries to interfere in the main event, Brock will whoop his ass anyways. And the closing statement: after Brock's finished with you, it won't be who's next, it's who's Goldberg. Bill grabbed the mic and once again said that Brock's next. Heyman got annoyed by the booing, and he's complaining to the fans, "I'm Paul Heyman." The moment he turned around, oh man, it was just hilarious. When I was watching this video, I just laughed my ass off. Just look at his reaction. It's like he saw December to dismember right before his very eyes or something. Then things got even worse, as Austin celebrated, drinking beer and all that stuff. Goldberg accidentally spears him. McMahon moved out of the way. You'd never seen him run quicker than he did here. And in the back, he refused to apologize. He admitted that it was an accident but wasn't going to say, "I'm sorry." Austin, though, did indicate that he will stun him eventually. Goldberg realized this, and so all was good between the two, in a way. Couple of seconds later, Vince McMahon ended up suspending Goldberg. And if he does appear at No Way Out, well, Bischoff's to blame. At No Way Out, Goldberg did make good on his word. He was in the Cow Palace. The commentary team were fearing the worst, and immediately Paul Heyman appeared to rectify the situation. He didn't, obviously. He was fearing for his life by the looks of it and was laser focused on the former world champion. So he comes out and informs Bill that this is SmackDown and all he'll do right now is enjoy the show because otherwise, well, he's going to be arrested. Then Brock Lesnar came out. This is where the problems arise. Paul was unintentionally or intentionally provoking Bill, and Brock claimed he was out there to prove that he is intimidated. He can sit there all night, but why doesn't he enter the ring? That's what he's telling Bill. Paul didn't want any action involving Goldberg, but Brock was really pushing his buttons. He told him to sit there and be the bitch that he is, and it was on. I mean, was Goldberg really going to sit down and let somebody talk to him like that? Hell no. The fight would be Brock Lesnar's wrongdoing. Heyman provided a distraction, but this accomplished nothing because Goldberg hit the jackhammer. Heyman was shouting for security, and you'd think a dog was biting his ass by the sounds of it. Bill was proud to be going to jail. He did what he intended to do, and now he's gone. Later in the night, Lesnar had that classic against Eddie Guerrero, and he had to resort to cheating in order to retain the title, but before he can do anything, Goldberg, from I don't know where, runs in and spears the living hell out of him as the fans cheer. The crowd was loving it, but despite this, Eddie still had to do some work in order to best Lesnar, but in the end, he did it. Awesome moment. But, moving on. Since Brock lost the title, he decided to make a challenge later that week on SmackDown. First of all, he looked naked without the belt. Second, he was depressed. Just look at him. Brock said that he had too much pride to stay at home because the title meant too much. The title was his life, and it meant everything to him. He criticized everything about Eddie, said that he capitalized on Goldberg, and in essence, he stole his title. As for Bill, he held him responsible for losing the gold, and his life hasn't been the same because of Goldberg. And to top it all off, because of him, he can't sleep at night. He promised to break Bill in half before asking Mr. McMahon, no, he was begging on his hands and knees for Mr. McMahon to make the matchup Brock Lesnar versus Bill Goldberg at WrestleMania 20. And he was crying. The boss finally responded on Raw later that week, stating that he couldn't make the match because nobody can control those two. But just when he's officially announcing the match won't happen, Stone Cold interrupts. Now, why was he here? He knew that the fans wanted the match. They clearly showed it. But another reason as to why he was here was because he saw himself as the perfect candidate for a special referee. Vince said that the 82nd Airborne could not contain both men. Vince sensed Austin wanted something out of this, whoop both of their asses, but made it official anyways. Before he can leave, though, McMahon made him the special referee for his match against Eric Bischoff to see what he's made of. Yeah, about that, well, Brock Lesnar ended up interfering. He caught Austin off guard with the F5 to end Raw on top. His reasoning for this, well, because if it wasn't for Austin handing Bill that ticket, he would still be champion. And no, he wasn't concerned about what Steve will do. All he was worried about was to make Goldberg feel pain. And hell, if Stone Cold wants to stick his nose into his business, he'll learn the meaning of off the hook pain. Were they trying to get that quote over or something? Remember the Chris Benoit for real thing was happening during this time period also. In relation to the Goldberg-Brock feud, Austin did all of this, chasing Vince with a damn ATV because the boss called him a terrible ref. Later in the night, however, somebody managed to steal his own ATV. Who can it be? Oh, I don't know. Okay, before moving on, one thing I learned while making this video, the lack of Goldberg appearances was because he was busy filming a movie by the name of Santa Slay. That's the reason why he made 0 appearances in the build-up for the match. SmackDown later that week saw Lesnar arrive in that same ATV. He trolled the fans into thinking Austin was coming down to SmackDown, and he admitted that it was. Keyword was Steve's four-wheeler. Brock thought it took guts to go to another show, and F5 Austin, and as for Bill Goldberg, he's next. Once again, he blamed Goldberg for not being champion and claimed that on March 14th, Goldberg will be beaten senselessly. On the final Raw before WrestleMania, Austin in a foul mood came out and said that he didn't give a rat's ass about any of those guys, but he'll still call the match down the middle. That is until one of them get out of line. Regarding Brock Lesnar, Austin announced that he's going to go down to SmackDown and regain his possession. You know, the ATV. Paul Heyman took notice and managed to round up the entire roster to put a stop to Stone Cold Steve Austin. So they come out at the end of the night, and it just showed how menacing Austin was in storyline. Like, that's how scared Paul Heyman was of him. He knew that he was going to raise hell. Brock comes down, calls out Austin to get back his four-wheeler, and Lesnar thought he was too scared, but that theory was thrown out of the window when he appeared. The entire roster looked him dead in the eyes, and they let him enter. They didn't want none. That is until Austin reached the Big Show. Okay, it's a trap, I guess. Heyman demanding they get him, but there was no action. They're not going after him. Big Show certainly wanted a piece of Austin, at least by the looks of it, but it turned out he didn't care. He didn't give a damn about this stuff, and as a matter of fact, he was encouraging some action against Heyman and Brock Lesnar. The roster walked out, and the Texas Rattlesnake took back his property before engaging in a fight with Brock Lesnar. Heyman took the stunner, and Lesnar was busted open. He realized that this wasn't his night, and so he ran away. Now, what was the elephant in the room during this week? Oh, it was known that Goldberg was leaving the WWE after WrestleMania. This meant Brock was going to win, right? But only a couple of days before WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar announced to everyone during the talent meeting that he was leaving the WWE. What? Just thinking about it from that time period, like, just think about it. Brock Lesnar, this guy, they gave him everything, and he's going to leave only 2 years into his run. The guys in the back were pissed. I believe Big Show is the angriest of them all. First of all, Brock purchased a plane only a couple of weeks earlier. They felt he was isolating himself from the guys in the back, and it made him look arrogant. You know, I'm above you guys. He did this because he was injured. He was exhausted. Another thing to mention is that he had a bunch of nagging injuries. He was exhausted. He doesn't remember a single thing. He was drinking a lot. He was taking pills. It was bad for him. Number 3, he didn't want a job to The Undertaker. The Undertaker at this point was going to return as the dead man, and he was definitely not going to be taking any L's. Number 4, he was annoyed at the fact that he traveled all the way down to South Africa in order to face Hardcore Holly. And lastly, this is the reason everybody knows, he wanted to be in the NFL. As a result of Lesnar's sudden announcement, the company scrapped the original plans of the match, you know, having Lesnar win, and figured to do something else. He was supposed to beat Goldberg clean, but that wasn't going to happen. So you understand where things were, right? Anyways, the match itself was what's the right word? Slothful. Why is that? Both guys couldn't give a full-timer's ass that they were supposed to put on a show. I mean, I watched the match in the past, and it was bad. I don't need to tell you that. You guys can go watch. No, don't go watch it for yourself. It's the fact that it's basic, you know what I mean? They didn't put much effort into it. It's not the good kind of basic. You sold out chants engulfed Madison Square Garden, and what I find funny about this is the fact that Shane McMahon was chanting along with the crowd. Nobody benefited from this situation, not a single soul, and it was bad. Headlocks, stare downs, tie-ups, boring. By the time Goldberg hit that second spear and a jackhammer, the fans were happy that it was all over. So basically, don't watch it again. You might find some enjoyment from it, you know, the crowd, Austin, the stupidity of it maybe, but it was bad. They were supposed to go all out. It was WrestleMania, but they didn't. The fans were wishing them goodbye. It was terrible. Right afterwards, Brock flipped the crowd, and Austin responded with a stunner. Goldberg, he drinks beer with Steve only to receive the same fate. They were pissed at Brock. Like, they were angry at Brock rather than Goldberg. They already knew he was leaving. But when Brock announced, I'm going away, they were like, you know what, you're losing, buddy. And this was the best way possible to end things. I mean, the fans love Steve Austin, and it's better to have him stand tall in the end, because he's actually going to remain with the company. Now, thinking in both guys' perspective, they probably didn't want any injuries, but they shouldn't have given them that much time. That's one thing to note. Like, they gave them a little too much time to go out there and fight. They could have just gave them 5 minutes if they were leaving, right? So that's the story. I'm thinking of watching this for 10 hours straight. It's going to be a challenge. With that said, Austin himself was gone within the next 3 weeks, so nothing was accomplished with this. I mean, the build-up to the match, think about it. There was only 2 instances where these two guys met, Rumble and No Way Out. They didn't meet on Raw or SmackDown. It was the Lesnar and Austin show during the build-up. You know what I'm trying to say? I mean, it's all good if you're going to have a Lesnar and Austin match, right? But it's Lesnar versus Goldberg. They could have done some tape segments and whatnot, but they didn't. That's another thing to mention. Like, the build-up, those 2 moments where Lesnar cost him the Rumble and Goldberg cost him the title were cool. But other than that, they didn't interact at all. That's what I'm trying to say. Also, another thing to mention is I heard that there was plans to have Brock face Austin after WrestleMania. That's a rumor once again, but I think it would have been cool to see. So yeah, what did you guys think of this feud? Please comment down below. That's the first video. Make sure you hit a jackhammer on the like button and perhaps the F5 on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.